everyone, it's time for a new round of box office predictions, and we're kicking off this video on a very, very high note because for our Fantasy Movie League recap this video, I've got 36 players who scored that perfect lineup last week. Here they all are, and if you'll notice, I'm finally back on the list. I am so happy to be joining this group of Fantasy Movie League winners, and apparently Dewey's happy too because that was his cue to join this video. And in case you saw the vlog that I posted last weekend, I also won my fantasy football week, so 2 for 2 in fantasy gaming, I guess. As for my top 5, didn't go 5 for 5. I came kind of close with some. I wish my numbers were just a little more accurate in certain places, but of course, we had Halloween topping the charts. It didn't hold as strong as I thought, but it did stay in that #1 spot with a very solid $31.4 million. A Star is Born saw yet another very impressive holdover, dropping a mere 26.3% for another $14 million. Venom is also in good shape yet again, earning another $10.7 million after a fairly light 41% dip. The #4 position went to Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, which has held on well after a fairly disappointing opening. This time around it made $7.3 million, just edging out the #5 film of the weekend, newcomer Hunter Killer, which kicked off its run with a lackluster $6.7 million start. Moving into this weekend's predictions now, my #5 is A Star is Born, and this is likely its very last appearance in the top 5 at the box office, but I do think it's bound to continue its extremely slow decline this weekend. Last weekend, the drop was a mere 26.3%, and I don't think that's changing all that much, and even if it does come up to, let's say, 30%, we're still talking about a $9.8 million Weekend 5 haul for A Star is Born. As for my #4 pick, that's where I have newcomer Nobody's Fool. I'm thinking this one might be a little bit of a bust for Tiffany Haddish, and it might even open as low as an R-rated comedy from Universal, and that was Sisters. That's the one that starred Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and when that one opened up, only made about $14 million opening weekend. It did go on to accumulate $87 million over its entire domestic run, so hopefully Nobody's Fool hangs around that long and can make a sum like that, but right off the bat, I do think that their opening weekend numbers are going to be very similar, and that's why I'm giving Nobody's Fool a $14 million start this weekend. Next up, we've got #3, and this weekend, my pick for that spot is Halloween. Right now, that movie is fairly on par with both Logan and Venom in terms of its opening weekend number and also its weekend 2% change. So, looking at weekend 3 for those two movies, the Venom percent change came all the way down to 48.5%. The Logan percent change came down to 53.3%. The thing is, though, I don't think that the percent change is coming down for Halloween. One, because horror movies do tend to see a steeper decline than others, and also because, at this point, Halloween is in the rearview mirror. But given that both Logan and Venom did see fairly minimal weekend 3 drops, that kind of makes me want to keep Halloween's percent change right where it was last weekend, and that would mean a 59% drop, which would still leave it with another $15 million. Moving on to #2 now, that is where I have Disney's The Nutcracker and The Four Realms. I do think that this one might post Disney's lowest opening weekend number of the year. At this point in time, the ticket sales don't look all that impressive, and social media buzz seems to be semi-non-existent. But what I do think could help this movie is, now that we're past Halloween, some early holiday time excitement, and that could get it to the $20 million mark, and I actually think that's right about where it's going to land. And if this movie does make $20 million opening weekend, that's going to put it about $4 to $5 million behind what is currently Disney's lowest opening of the year, and that's Disney's Christopher Robin. Now it's time for my #1, and this weekend that honor goes to Bohemian Rhapsody. I think we could have a pretty big moneymaker on our hands with this one, maybe even bigger than A Star is Born. A Star is Born, when it opened up, had $42.9 million. I did think it was going to come pretty close to A Star is Born given the popularity of Queen, the buzz around Rami Malek's performance. Also, early ticket sales this week had looked pretty good. Plus, it's not like it has a huge contender like Venom to go up against, but what wound up bringing the Bohemian Rhapsody number slightly above A Star is Born for me is the big haul the movie already took at the UK box office, plus a report from Fandango that claims the movie is outpacing A Star is Born here in the US. So with that in mind, I want to go slightly above A Star is Born's opening number and give Bohemian Rhapsody an opening weekend total of $43 million. It is recap time now. Of course, I've got Bohemian Rhapsody in the #1 position with $43 million. Then it's the Nutcracker and the Four Realms at #2 with $20 million. Halloween takes the #3 spot for me with $15 million. Then it's Nobody's Fool at #4 with $14 million. And finally, A Star is Born rounding out the top 5 with $9.8 million. There it is, guys. Those are my predictions. Now, you know what I like you to do. Hit that comment section below. Put your top 5 right there. And don't forget to fill out your Fantasy Movie League lineup. Fingers crossed for another perfect lineup this weekend. Before we close out this video, I've got a round of Patreon shoutouts to give, and this is going to 4 individuals who are Patreon veterans. They are Billy, Neil, Steven, and Brian. You guys have heard this time and time again, but I've got to repeat it. 1, thank you for joining the campaign to begin with, and 2, thank you for sticking with it. It really does make a difference, and it is greatly appreciated. A huge thanks to everybody out there watching these box office prediction videos. I love making them. I hope you love watching them. Tune in next week to see how we all did on our box office predictions.